I gained 20 pounds. This is what I screwed up. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I own a gym for 10 years. I've coached thousands of clients, and everyone seems to think that all trainers have it easy. We're motivated all the time, we're disciplined, and staying fit, getting fit is just a walk in the park. I'm here to tell you that's not the case, at least for me. So almost every year it seems like I will cut and get to the point where I want to be at, where I feel lean, I feel great, and then eventually I intentionally will gain some weight, but usually gain way more than I actually intended to. So there's typically a threshold for me where there's a certain amount of weight that I actually want to gain, and then there's a certain amount that's like a little bit more than I'd like, then bad but fixable, and then non-negotiable. And it seems like every year I hit that non-negotiable point, and there are 4 things that I typically make mistakes of, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So if you can correct and be a little bit proactive with these 4 things, it's going to make your life a lot easier so you don't get to the point where you've completely gone off the rails and makes your cut a lot more difficult. Because every single May, right as the weather gets better, that's when I want to cut down, and when I've gained more weight than I'd like, it makes it a lot more difficult. So learn from me, try to correct these mistakes, and be super proactive. Number 1 is I stopped weighing myself. Now, this kind of makes sense because if your number 1 goal isn't fat loss and you're not really worried about that number on the scale, you might think, what's the point of weighing myself? Had I done this though, I would have hit that threshold a lot earlier and then kind of converted and switched gears to be able to make sure that I'm reaching my goals a lot earlier. So I would have done this weeks ago instead of continuing to gain the weight and making my cut a lot more difficult. So weighing yourself every day, even though it's not your number 1 goal, it's going to be great accountability, and it's also going to be a great idea to find out where you've hit your threshold and when you've hit your threshold and how you can adjust. So if I were to do it again, I would have weighed myself every day. It's almost like when you're in a bad financial situation and you don't want to check the bank account. That doesn't make you go away. Things get worse before they get better. So if you're not feeling great about where your weight is, sometimes the best thing to do is actually acknowledge it, fix it. The earlier, the better. So I wish I would have done this weeks ago. Number 2, along the same lines here, is I stopped tracking my food and my calories. But once again, it kind of makes sense, right? Fat loss wasn't my goal. So I wasn't really super concerned with calories. Now I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I don't really eat a lot of like junk food. I don't have a sweet tooth. I don't eat a lot of like chips and stuff like that, but I just eat a lot of food. So I can totally see how people would get to the point where they get like obese if you're a big eater and you like the junk food, because I'm a big eater as well. So luckily I like healthy foods, but just eating too much in general. When you're not tracking, these calories can add up. Once again, my goal wasn't fat loss, so I wasn't super concerned with it, but there is a threshold, right? There's a little bit of a bell curve. Too little or too much is never good. I definitely leaned on the side of too much. And just like I said with the weight, tracking your food is a great way to add additional accountability. You're much less likely to nibble, to have those extra bites, to have the extra serving sizes if you have to track everything. And this was definitely something that adds up over time. Just like ignoring your bank account, if you're not tracking your food, you're not tracking your calories, ignorance is kind of bliss, but the problem is eventually you have to face reality, and by not tracking, things can add up real quick, and that's obviously a main reason why I gained 20 pounds in just a few months. Number 3, my steps went down, so I was moving a lot less. Now I live in Canada where winters are cold and miserable, so naturally my movement is going to be less or lower. Now I will say, even when I'm bad, I still walk quite a bit. So my average during the winter would still be about 10,000 calories, which is pretty good. But when you compare that to what I'm doing in the spring and the summer, where I'm averaging almost double that, it's a huge difference, right? So we pair that up. My steps are lower, my calories are higher, and you can just imagine what that does to my body. It's just a bad combination in general. So I could have been a lot more proactive with that. Maybe got like a walking pad, or maybe just emphasize walking a little bit more during the winter months. Not necessarily something I regret. It's something that I do every month or every year anyway. So I wouldn't change it, but it is something that absolutely contributes to me gaining weight. The higher calories, the lower steps. Bad combination. That's why you see so many people in these cold countries and areas gain weight in the winter and then lose weight again in the summer. And then number 4, this one's super important. I should know better. It's I didn't have a goal. When I was cutting weight, I had a very specific goal. I had a purpose, I had a mission, and I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I was driven by that. I knew what I had to eat, I knew what I had to exercise, and everything was very regimented. Once that stopped, I didn't really have a specific plan. So because I'm in the line of work that I am, I still worked out, I still ate relatively healthy, but I didn't really have a plan. Everything was kind of half-assed. The workouts weren't as intense. The nutrition was very, slack compared to what I normally do. And I didn't really have a specific goal. And I regret this because recently I started my cut, and as a bigger guy now, I went to the gym and really started to train a lot more intently and realized how much more strength I had now. So had I maybe shifted my goal to something more performance related and realized that I'd be able to lift a lot more now than I did maybe 15, 20 pounds ago, I would have had a really, really enjoyable and productive bulk or maintenance period as well. So having a goal is super important, not just for your motivation and your accountability, because you're much more likely to stay on track if you have something that's going to drive you. This is especially true for someone who doesn't have the same line of work that I do. Like, I have to work out, right? Regardless. Even if I'm not motivated, even if I'm not inspired, like, I have to work out. It's what I do. But if you're not like that and you don't have a specific goal, it can be very easy to just completely fall off track. I used to see this all the time at the gym. Guys would come in, they'd crush it during the summer months, they'd lose their weight, and then they'd fall off and stop everything. Their nutrition would go completely out the window. They wouldn't work out at all. And then again, the next year, I'd see the same people. So you want to make sure that you're always staying on track, and having a goal makes it a lot easier. There's pros and cons with everything. So when you're cutting weight and you're losing fat, the pros are going to be you look good, you feel good, you're leaner. But the cons, your performance and your strength will go down. So use that to your advantage when you're bulking up and gaining some weight. Try to focus more on performance, try to focus on strength, try to focus on some of those things that aren't going to be as easy during your fat loss cut. All right, guys, so this is probably year number 5 or 6 of me basically going into the same cycle over and over again. Now, I intentionally do gain weight, but I almost always overdo it, and it makes my cut a lot more difficult. So hopefully you're watching this video and you're learning from my mistakes. You can be a lot more productive because it will make your life a lot easier. So if you do enjoy videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.